Well, welcome, Mr. Wilson. Let's start with life before UH. Where were you born?
I was born in San Angelo, Texas, and I grew up in Corpus Christi, Texas, and Brownsville, Texas. And I was in Brownsville during my high school years, and it was during World War II. It was 1940 to 1946. And it was a very interesting time. If anybody was 17 and a half, they were gone in the service. So all the jobs were held by 16-year-olds and 15-year-olds and 17-year-olds. I was a newscaster on the local radio station, as a matter of fact. And so it was a very interesting time.
Okay. And then what high school, did you graduate from high school in Brownsville?
In Brownsville High School in 1944.
Okay, so what brought you to the University of Houston?
Well, I had registered for the draft and was to report on September 17th, 1945. World War II was still going on. And Harry Truman dropped 2 atom bombs in August.
Yes.
So the war was over in a week. My orders were canceled, so I didn't go. So I signed up for a second year at Brownsville Junior College. Okay. And completed that in the spring of '46. And I came to Houston because of my father. Nobody had ever heard of the University of Houston in Brownsville, Texas.
Yes.
The University of Houston was 18 years old, and I was 18 years old. Yes. But my father felt like that if he could get his boys, my brother Jack and me, into Houston, that would give us a leg up in what he thought was going to be the biggest, most important business city in America. In those days, metropolitan Houston had 500,000 people. Today, there's 6.5 million people in metropolitan Houston. Yes. So he was certainly right on Houston. I'll never forget when he dropped us off at Trailer Village. He said, "Boys, I've paid your first semester's tuition. I've paid your first month's rent on this house trailer, $10. And he said, and here's $50 each. And then he said, whenever you boys need anything, I want you to call me up on the telephone. You need something, just call me up, and I'll explain how you can get by without it." And we never heard from him financially again, nor did we expect to. I got a job selling advertising for the Daily Cougar. Okay. We performed in nightclub acts. It was a comedy act in nightclubs in Houston. We did just fine. Okay, and so expanding on that, your time at U of H, what college were you in? Any other activities? What was the major? I was studying pre-law. Okay. Whatever that means. And so I was taking mainly business courses at the College of Business. And then my wife decided that I either needed to marry her or she was going to somebody else. So I said, well, I'll go ahead and get a bachelor's degree. Okay. And go to law school later. Well, you know how that is. I got my bachelor's degree and never got back to law, which is all right. So I received a bachelor's degree and had to go double time in the summer in order to complete enough hours to graduate. Okay. And then life, once you graduated after that, what career did you? Well, I got married the day I graduated. Okay. To my first wife, who also, by the way, is my only wife. Okay. And I went into government service. I served first at the University of Houston for about 8 or 9 months, and then I got called into the Korean War. Okay. I was a naval officer in Japan. Then when I came back, I got a job working at City Hall for about 3 years as an assistant to the mayor. Okay. And then Dwight Eisenhower appointed me to a federal position. So I served 5 years in the federal government in the executive office of the president. Okay. And so I spent the first 12 years of my career in government service. And then I returned to Houston to enter business. I was a real estate developer. My first project was Jamaica Beach in Galveston. Wow, okay. Okay. And so then let's go now to Frontier Fiesta. Take us back.
what was the creation? How did it start? Can you take us there? What?
Okay, Frontier Fiesta was started before World War II.
Okay.
In 1940, they had Frontier Fiesta. It was a very modest enterprise. In 1941, they had Frontier Fiesta. And then because of World War II, they suspended anything. It suspended Frontier Fiesta. And that was characteristic. In World War II, we were serious. Every person in America was fighting the war in one way or another. It's not like today where we have 1% of our people over there fighting for us, and we don't even inconvenience ourselves.
Right.
And we think we're doing our part if we applaud when a veteran walks in or something.
Yes.
Anyway, it was a different time. Everybody had their shoulder to the wheel. Everybody was sacrificing for the war and so forth. So where was I?
I guess Frontier Fiesta stopped because
Okay.
of World War II.
So in 1946, in the spring, a guy named Johnny Goen was running for president of the student body. So Johnny campaigned on a platform that he was going to bring back Frontier Fiesta.
Okay.
And so Johnny won the election. Johnny, by the way, went on to become the mayor pro tem of Houston for 22 years.
Wow.
And he was my business partner in Jamaica Beach and other things. We owned banks together and other things. And so Johnny got busy in September, and started organizing Frontier Fiesta for the following spring of '47. And we had no rules, we had no plan, we just did it. But
Okay.
it was a huge success. We recreated a whole western city. And what we did is we would build storefronts made out of slabs, they're called. What it is on the pine tree, when they start making timber out of pine
Yes.
trees,
Yes.
they cut off the bark,
Okay.
and it's about this thick, and they just throw those away. The slabs, they call them. So we went around to every sawmill picking up slabs, and we made fronts for about 23 storefronts. And then behind it, we rented tents that would be behind. And it had all the characteristics of a western town. And the point is, unlike today at Frontier Fiesta, everybody wore western clothes.
Oh, okay.
See, now, I
Yes.
was so stunned when I went to Frontier Fiesta the first time out here, when it was brought back, because everybody was in shorts and all kinds of informal clothes and whatever. In those days, everybody wore western wear at the Frontier Fiesta. And Jack and I were asked to sing in the Cavalier Theater. In fact, I have a photograph here of my brother and I singing. That's me standing, that's him with the beard and the piano.
Okay.
Incredibly, we were able to talk a Ford dealer in Houston into giving us a brand new Ford automobile for whoever won the beard contest.
Okay.
And it got us all kinds of publicity. And we were all, by the way, very promotion organized.
Yes.
And the first Frontier Fiesta, Jack Valenti, who was also my partner and friend, later president of the Motion Picture Association of America, he got a Hollywood starlet to fly to Houston and be the honorary queen of Frontier Fiesta.
Yes.
And but it was remarkable, with so few resources, what we were able to do. Getting an automobile donated, building a whole city.
Right.
All the rest of it.
Right. And so let's go, I guess let's start with some people there. Tell us a bit more, if you can, about Mr. Jack Valenti. Is that correct? So what was his his contribution or his part in Frontier Fiesta?
Well, Valenti had been there in 1940 and 1941.
Okay.
He joined the service in 1942
Okay.
in the Air Force and ended up flying in Europe
Okay.
for like 45 missions, something like that. So he was involved in the first 2 years, but he graduated in the spring of 46.
Oh. Okay.
So he was not involved in 47. He had gone off in the spring of 46 to the Harvard Business School.
Okay.
And so he was not there during that school year. Afterward, after a year, he came back and was involved in other things. He did help us get the movie stars every
Right.
time, 47, 48, 49, 50, etc.
Okay.
And by the way, I'm so proud that our School of Communications is named after Jack
Yes.
Valenti.
Yes, definitely. And another name that comes to mind, we have an award now in Frontier Fiesta for the best student organization, primarily Greek organization wins, and that's called the Joe Koppel Award. Who was Mr. Joe Koppel?
Joe Koppel was killed during World War II, and he was the first chairman of Frontier Fiesta.
Wow.
I think it was 1940. And he was killed during World War II, in the very early part of the war. I forget where he was or what service he was in.
Okay. Any other names that come to mind that have to be spoken about?
There was a guy named Bill Spar.
Okay.
Bill Spar was chairman of Frontier Fiesta in 1948, and I was business manager of Frontier Fiesta.
Okay.
My activities in college always had to do with money.
Yes.
And I was business manager of the newspaper, I was business manager of the Houstonian, the yearbook, I was business manager of Frontier Fiesta, business manager of the Village News, but it was always related to making money and that sort of thing. But Spar was a great chairman. He had taken over from a guy named Harold Goodman.
Okay.
Harold Goodman, who later, by the way, was a billionaire, had been elected chairman, I believe it was for the 1948 Frontier Fiesta. And he but he transferred from the University of Houston to the University of Texas.
Oh, okay.
So then he resigned and Bill Spar was selected to replace him. But Goodman, we called him Bubba. His wife died just the other day. He died about 10 years ago. But Bubba was a great guy. Back in about 1950, he started an air conditioning distribution business.
Yes.
Because there were none, first in Houston. But in other words, he distributed wind air conditioning for homes. And it was a very small operation, small business, etc. And then one thing led to another, and over time it became the Goodman Company.
Yes.
And they own Amanda Appliances.
Yes, yes.
And everything you can imagine.
Okay. Any other names that you can think of off the top of your head?
Well, Chief Mitchell was much involved. He was a faculty member. Forget what Chief taught, but he was a favorite and very much involved. Dr. Williamson was not the dean of men, but the equivalent in those days. Remember, in those days we had no fraternities and sororities.
Oh, okay, okay.
In those days, we didn't have a dean of men. We had a director of students or something like that.
Yes.
So, and by the way, the University of Houston in those days was making it up as it went along. In other words, there were no rules.
Right.
And we went from 3,500 students in the spring to 10,500 in the fall of 1946.
Wow. So
We had 3 buildings on campus, plus a gazillion temporary military wooden buildings. and where all the classes were taught, or most of the classes were taught.
Wow. So if it was not the Greek organizations, how did you all organize for the different like shows, like Bella the Union and the Silver Moon? What was the organization of the students?
There were organizations that had shows, and then we had organizations, they just weren't Greek organizations.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I think the APO had the Bella Union, if I'm not mistaken. And the Cavalier was a club on campus, and they had a show that Jack and I sang in. And the Cavaliers later became some fraternity.
Okay, I understand. So then, also, tell us about this Fiesta parade. A lot of us don't know that Fiesta had a parade even. What was that?
Well, like I say, we weren't very good at doing a lot of stuff, but we were good at promoting. So we talked the city of Houston into having a parade, letting us have a parade down Main Street.
Wow.
And we got flatbed trucks and had the girls dress up in their dancing costumes and so forth, and the men in their beards and whatever, and had a parade. And I think we did that for 2 or 3 years, as I recall, in the early
Excellent.
days.
And then while we're on that, tell us a bit more about the beard growing contest. What was?
Well, it was remarkable. My brother always tried to win. But every time, at the last day, somebody that we'd never seen before would show up with a beard out the ear.
Right.
And I remember one guy that won it, I believe, 2 years. He had a real skinny face. So the fact that his beard was out to here would indicate it had to grow a lot.
Yes, yes.
But anyway, so Jack never never won the automobile. But I would say we had at least 1,000 people
Wow.
who participated in the beard contest.
And then you said won an automobile. Was that the first place prize? Was
Yes.
it? Oh, okay.
Best all-around beard. We also had the ugliest beard. We had the not the scraggliest, but anyway, we had about 3 or 4 categories. That you could
Okay.
enter in.
Wow, that must have been an undertaking trying to get all of that judged and organized and arranged. What else happened in those glory days of Frontier Fiesta that we maybe not do anymore, that you remember that just stood out? What else? What was some differences? What else was?
Well, the city, Fiesta City itself, was built over near the woods near Cullen,
Okay.
and it was on a part of the campus that was not developed. Like I say, we had 3 buildings at the time.
Right.
One of which has since been torn down, the recreation building. But that was one dramatic difference, is that we built a city and so forth, and which is one of the problems that Frontier Fiesta developed. It got to where, 10 years later, in the spring semester, Frontier Fiesta dominated everything on campus.
Ah.
It was hard to get students to go to classes
Yes.
because they had the Frontier Fiesta meeting, or they were
Yes.
building a stage or whatever. And finally, when the president, General Bruce, who was a 3-star general before he became president, he banned it because it was just interfering too much with people's studies.
Right. Right.
And I was amused about that. I didn't go to class a lot myself, I might
Yes.
add. And my trick would always be to go 3, 4 weeks before I showed up for class the first time.
Yes.
And when I got there, I'd sit on the front row and ask a million questions and whatever. And I remember a professor once saying, "Mr. Wilson, it's not gonna work this time. It's not gonna work.
Right.
You can't come in here and having skipped." But so the other day I was making a speech somewhere, and I made the comment. I said, after I became chairman of the Board of Regents at the University of Houston, I used to like to pop into a class every once in a while, just to see what's going on. Infrequently, but I like to just come in and pop in and see what's happening. And then I said, now that I think about it, that was pretty much my policy as a student as well.
Right. So location was one of those things that have changed. What else? What else do you remember that is something a little bit different? Because we do, we've kept the beard growing contest up. We, of course, do the variety shows. Was there this cook-off aspect that we do now?
No cook-off.
No cook-off.
And cook-offs were invented later, so we didn't have them in those days. But I think that adds a lot to.
Oh, definitely.
The chancellor and I went to a show about 2 years ago, and I was so gratified. She and I walked in. The show was just about to start. There was about 200 people in the audience, on folding chairs, and
Yes.
so forth, in a tent. And when they saw her, they jumped to their feet and gave her a 5-minute standing ovation. What a thrill that was for me, because I hired her.
Yes.
And I couldn't be more proud of the job she has done.
Yes.
She has electrified this campus.
Yes, definitely. So, what, we've talked kind of about Fiesta in a general sense, but a bit more personal. Could you describe to us those feelings and those emotions you had for your first Frontier Fiesta, and what it looked like, and just how it was to be there? Your first Frontier Fiesta, how were you feeling?
Well, it was very exciting. My brother and I decided that we could make some money if we produced a program for Frontier Fiesta. And in our view was that we were going to prepare the program, sell advertising, and make a lot of money personally. So a guy named Whitmore Plumbing, Whitmore Printing Company, I'll get it right in a minute. He said, what you guys need to do is you need to sell signatures. He said, charge people $1 to get their signature in the Frontier Fiesta program. And he said, that will finance your enterprise. So based on his idea, we signed the contract, my brother and I, personally, for $800. We didn't have $8 at the time. And we produced this program. Well, it turned out that people were unwilling to pay $1 to get their signature. So we ended up with about 25 signatures.
Yes.
Then we tried to sell ads, and so then now it's published and the money is spent, and we've got to sell the magazine, the programs at 25 cents each, and that was going to bail us out.
Right.
So the first night or two of Frontier Fiesta, we were going all over through the Frontier Fiesta city selling programs, and we were doing fairly well, but not nearly enough to bail us out. So the dean, Dr. Williamson, called us in, and the business manager of Frontier Fiesta was there, and he said, Dr. Williamson said, it's really unfair for you and your brother to keep all this profit from the program, and and we think that that's not the intention of the spirit and this, that, and the other thing. And so we said, well, what would you propose? Said, well, we propose that you turn that whole operation over to Frontier Fiesta, and let them keep the profit and so forth. So it was hard to keep a straight face, but I said, well, we're happy to do that. So the next day we took 100 programs, and we took them to every show.
Okay.
And we said, you sell these programs and put the money in your pot.
Yes.
And so then we went back on our books. We said we've sold 100 to this show and 100 to that show, 100 over here, or whatever. And of course, instead of selling them, they took them and whatever. And even when it was all over, nobody could tell whether the program made any money or not, which was our purpose.
Right.
But anyway, it was years before I admitted that to Johnny Goen, who was the chairman that year of Frontier Fiesta. And by the way, that year the Frontier Fiesta had a loss of $800. Anyway, but we learned something about
Definitely.
enterprise, private enterprise.
And this was doing the years when Frontier Fiesta was a week, correct?
Yeah.
It was and that was.
It may have been 5 days.
And that was like the placement of like a spring break, am I to understand that correctly? Like there was not a spring break, but it was were classes still going on?
Yes, we didn't have spring break when I was in college.
Okay.
That was invented later.
Okay.
But no, classes were going on, just very few people were going to class.
Of course, right.
But it lasted, it was in April, as I recall, maybe the second week of April, something like that. But it was an exciting time, and you had, everybody was involved. You had, there'd be 30, 40 people in every show, and there must have been 10 or 12 shows.
Right.
And then there was a general store and all kinds of other enterprises.
Right, right. Again, another more personal question to you, Mr. Wilson. What has Frontier Fiesta meant to you personally?
Well, I always thought it was a great trainer of students. It's a private enterprise. In other words, it is an entrepreneurial enterprise. And you build your facility, you organize the show, you have somebody put on the show, you spend 1 million hours and whatever, then you charge people to come in, and so I thought it was great for student spirit, and it was great for experience.
Okay. And then what would you say is the essence of Frontier Fiesta? No matter the year, no matter the time, what are some things or one thing even for that matter, what is the essence of Frontier Fiesta? What just cannot change? What is an essence of Frontier?
Well, I don't know exactly how to answer that, but I think they've got the right idea. When they brought back Frontier Fiesta for the first time 10 years ago, whenever it was, I supported them financially a little bit and became a member of their support committee or whatever. But I think it's keeping the enterprise going. It is the enthusiasm of the shows that is the essence, in my opinion.
Yes.
Because the students produce the whole show. They act in them and
Yes.
perform in them and so forth. And in those days, by the way, very strict rules about no dirty jokes, no profanity, and no drinking. See, it was illegal in Texas to drink on a college campus,
Okay.
on a university campus.
Yes.
And I'm not saying it didn't happen.
Right.
But I didn't drink at all in those days, so I wasn't interested. But let me tell you, behind the stage, there was plenty of drinking going on.
Right. And so, it's interesting you mentioned how Frontier Fiesta did have its revival. It did come back. It was, you said, was it General Bruce, correct, who kind of, put it
Right.
to rest for a while there. There are people today who say, not because Chancellor Couture would do it or such, but because of monetary reasons or infrastructure reasons or location reasons, that Frontier Fiesta may be suspended or stopped again, or traditions die down or fade away. What would you say to those who say Frontier Fiesta could be one of those? It's like any other tradition, it could just stop. What would you say to those who say that?
I think that'd be short-sighted. We're sitting in Melcher Hall. Melcher Hall was named after Leroy Melcher, the founder of U-Totem, which was a convenience store before we had convenience stores, going back to the early 1930s. And Leroy made a lot of money, and he gave us, I forget what it was, $25 million or something, and we built this building. when he was alive, Leroy used to call me on the phone. And he'd say, welcome, we've got to bring back Frontier Fiesta. Promise me that you'll help me bring back Frontier Fiesta. And so this is, you know, when he was 50.
Yes.
So the point is, it had an impact on him,
Yes.
like it did on me.
Yes.
And I think that needs to continue.
Definitely. Is there anything else that you can think of about Frontier Fiesta that you want to speak on or say? Any great show? Any of the celebrities who came through? Anything? What was your favorite part or favorite memory? I know there are so many, but what is one that just really stays with you or sticks to you? A memory of Frontier Fiesta, or favorite part? Yes.
I would say it was the shows. I'll never forget that first year. My brother and I were frantically trying to sell programs in order
Yes.
to bail ourselves out. So we were singing at the Cavalier Theater, so we had to deal with them that whenever we'd just walk in and they'd stop the show and we'd perform, and then they'd start the show back up again. And we only performed, instead they had say 5 shows a night, and we maybe performed 3 times or something like that because we were busy trying to sell programs. But I remember at the Cavalier Theater one time, my brother and I had an act that was always well received. And so, I mean, there'd be a solid, strong applause after every number and so forth. We only knew 4 numbers, by the way.
Yes.
And never learned a new one. And so one time, it was sort of a Hell's a Poppin' kind of show. So one of the Cavaliers had a monkey. So right in the middle of our song, he brings out this monkey on stage. And the monkey is doing stuff and
Yes.
what they know. And of course, every eye is on the monkey.
Yes. Yes.
So Jack and I finish our song, nobody applauds. And maybe 3 seconds later, the audience realized we stopped singing and they started applauding. So anyway, we ended our part of the show right then, and no, we played one more number, and then left and did not come back the rest of the time. But we didn't want to be competing with some monkey for the attention of the audience.
Yes. Wow. Wow. Mr. Wilson, if you could just finish this statement. Frontier Fiesta is.
Frontier Fiesta is an opportunity for students to learn organization, to learn how to meet deadlines, to learn how to be a success in life. And it's an opportunity to build student spirit, and it's an on-campus opportunity. And we, in my view, the university needs on-campus activities. And now that we have 8,000 students living on campus, I think Frontier Fiesta will grow and thrive.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Clement?
Thank you. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Back in your day, when you used to, we would have the siren that ring at noon on Friday or whatever.
Right.
You were responsible for all that. Explain how that fit.
Well, my job at City Hall was I was director of what was called Civil Defense.
Civil Defense.
And an assistant conveyor. And the director of Civil Defense coordinates the police department and the fire department and the welfare department and in other words, to coordinate all the city forces for an emergency, including natural disasters. And so we put in sirens in most public schools. We had about 75 of them around Houston. So I decided that every Friday at noon, we would test the sirens just to remind people that they were there. So every Friday at noon, the sirens would go off for about 30 seconds. And and then the Cold War had been over 10 years before they finally stopped the sirens.
So this is a real, I mean, you might remember this, Debbie, growing up in Houston, you remember those sirens. It was, you know how you hear emergency broadcast system and every now and again, like on KUHF or on Channel 13. This was a constant. You just knew. In fact, some people could set their clocks by
Yeah,
that
that's right.
because we
They
didn't
knew
always
about
have,
that.
clocks and stuff that worked well.
You gotta recognize that in those years, people didn't worry about traffic, they didn't worry about the economy, they worried about nuclear attack.
Yes.
Right.
And for good reason.
Well, we were right here back, in Cuba, the whole thing there. As school kids, we learned duck and cover
That's
and how to get underneath our desks and, I mean,
That
this.
would have helped us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The saved you.
Same.
Yes, I'm okay.
Well, I didn't know. He told us it would help us and we believed it.
Well, I mean, we all thought so then.
Yeah.
I mean, we did think so. Get under the desk, put your head down, cover
Sure,
your
sure.
head.
Yeah, and if you had a mattress around, put that mattress on you.
But in reality,
Yeah.
if they had sent a nuclear warhead over here to Houston, we probably wouldn't have survived that.
Houston-
Yeah,
It
but
wasn't
here's the
us.
thing. There are always survivors. There are always survivors. So the question is, are you gonna survive or not? And for example, in those days, we had the atom bomb to deal with. Well, the atom bomb, going off on Main at Crawford Street, Main and Capitol Street, downtown, would have relatively little effect 7 miles away. So there was much of metropolitan Houston that would not have been destroyed by an atom attack. But that was a problem we had to fight because people said, well, my God, if a nuclear attack occurs, it's all over. We'll all be dead, and so no use preparing for it. And in my mistake, that was wrong because there are always survivors. And even at Hiroshima and Nagasaki,
That's right, right in dead center zero, there's survivors. And so you wanna know what to do next.
I think the other part of it that was really important is that it gave people a sense of security.
Yeah.
Just like you're saying, the regularity of the sirens going
Yeah.
off. When you feel secure and you feel like you're doing something that's going to help you, it gives people a sense of confidence, and you certainly don't want the public to be panicky.
yeah. One thing that we did that we gave a name tag to every child at school. They had a name tag so they could be identified if they were killed. Now that's scary when you think about it.
Right.
But you guys have no idea what a powerful person this is right here. I mean, I have known him for so many years, and historically, and in, so many levels, Houston, but also federal, what we're talking.
Yes.
This guy has such important information. And then he just knew how to, I think it was your promotion and selling, you were always with the right people at the right time. Or you created them to be the right people.
I've already made him that way.
You made them.
I was always a schmoozer, if that's the right word. Suck up, some might call it. But, so I always knew how to develop a relationship with important people. And so when I knew Eisenhower when I was 27 years old. And so I always promoting myself.
I got a picture I'm gonna send you of Eisenhower, because we're bringing back the Cullen Rifles. And
No
we have a
kidding.
picture of the Cullen Rifle team with Eisenhower. I already sent out the invitation to the Board of Regents so they can get it out to you, because I'm not supposed to, get to you guys. But September 27th, we're gonna have at 9 o'clock in the morning over at the Athletic Learning Center. We're gonna bring in the marksman unit from San Antonio, Fort Sam Houston.
Terrific.
And Lily Robertson brought the money in, and we're going to bring back Cullen Rifles. They've already had their patch approved
Oh, no
in
kidding.
the Pentagon, and so it's all set, and we're gonna have competitive rifle team on campus again.
That's great.
Now, did you know the Cullen Rifles at all when?
Yes, but I had long since graduated.
Yeah, right.
RTC came along in the 50s, as I recall, so I was out of college, but I was vice president of the alumni organization. and
Okay,
all
so
that
that's
kind
how
of
you,
thing.
well, the Common Rifles are not only NCAA competition, but they're also Olympic competition. And there was a point in the University of Houston history where we had Olympians and, you know, All-Americans from this Cullen rifle team. And then we had problems with Vietnam. Nobody wanted to enroll in TC.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a story. In about 47, in this fall, I met H.R. Cullen for the first time. They were having a Board of Regents meeting on campus. So I, always being the smoozer, I was able to meet him and whatever. So I went home that night. I was working and bringing in money. My brother Jack was the housewife, and he cooked and did all that kind of stuff. So we didn't have any money to speak of. And so that night we were having beans. But we used to have beans. So we're sitting there eating in the trailer number 67. And I said, you know, I met the chairman of the Board of Regents today. And I said, you know, I could be chairman of the Board of Regents. And if I work it right and whatever. And my brother thought so little of the idea, he didn't even look up from his bean.
I love it, yeah. Now, your memory and your sharing, we all, these students appreciate it. Let's get a picture. We didn't get y'all in a picture with,
We are really honored to have you.